The name was Charlize Theron. But people got unease in pronouncing it, and therein lies the problem of their own. So they say things like Theron, but they're wrong, Charlize, they're wrong, and hence this song. Welcome to the Theronathon. We're gonna do the Theronathon. Take a bite and chew the Theronathon. Juicy like fondue, the Theronathon. Get a film review at the Theronathon. Woohoo, the Theronathon. I'm sniffing glue on the Theronathon.
You are listening to the Theronathon. We are your hosts, my good pal Robin Elaine Hitchcock. Hello. And my good pal and husband Bob Shields.
Hello.
And we are reviewing today the 2002 movie Trapped, starring Charlize Theron. Not to be confused with Trapped, a very popular Bollywood movie apparently, according to Google, or
Trapped, a documentary about abortion restrictions.
or
Trapped, an Icelandic miniseries about people stuck in a town.
guys, there's a reason that this is the last thing that comes up when you search for the movie Trapped.
That's because all of those things are more appropriately named.
And interesting and worthwhile elements of our culture. Let's one sound this guy.
Let's do it.
Oh.
That's how I feel about that.
You can just started a lawnmower.
And I'm gonna cut this movie down. Get ready, guys.
So what is the plot?
So the plot, very quickly, is evil Kevin Bacon.
Is there any other kind? Dancing Kevin Bacon.
Dancing Kevin.
I answered my own question.
Evil Kevin Bacon starts the movie in greenscale because it is a video game intro.
Yeah, it reminds me of a reenactment on like that show Crime Stoppers. Do you have that here?
We don't, but we have similar things.
Yes,
Yes.
it's like a crime reenactment.
Yeah.
Like super overexposed, grainy.
Really cheap looking.
Yeah, for no reason.
So he's in the car with a woman, and you find out basically that he's reuniting her with her kid, and you understand that he has kidnapped the kid, and then he's like, I love bringing families together. And then the credits roll, and basically, like, the entire plot of the movie is summarized in those moments, and you're kind of like, oh, I get what's going on, I don't need to watch the rest of it.
Did anyone else think there was going to be a twist at that point? It was like, oh, that kid's going to explode. Or
Yes. I thought
something.
the whole school was going to blow up.
Right, I was
Oh,
like,
goodness.
something's going to happen, but the twist is, there's no twist.
I was not anticipating a twist. I was still struggling with the whole visuals element.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a journey. And then we cut to a happy family in generic waterfront property. I don't know.
Pretend Portland, I believe it is. They are in Vancouver, Canada.
Yes. So it is Charlize Theron and Stuart Townsend and their daughter Dakota Fanning.
And this is how Charlize and Stuart Townsend met, and then they dated for almost 10 years.
Okay. He's going off to a conference because he's a doctor. And she's like, oh, you're going to miss your little girl growing up, as an allusion to what's about to happen. And then she goes back to her house with her daughter, and then evil Kevin Bacon arrives, along with Marvin, the name of every generic henchman. Marvin aways with the kid, and then Kevin Bacon has time to write in red, bad idea, on a glass window to terrorize Charlize Theron. And basically, like, he's staying with her, and he's like, look, if you do anything wrong, then Marvin's going to kill your daughter. And you're going to give me money, but it's going to take 24 hours so that I have ample time to rape you.
So they make some kind of justification for, like, it makes it harder to catch them.
Yeah,
But it's specious.
So he does this whole thing with like how this is a perfect crime. Like I have every matchstick is in place to make this work flawlessly, like clockwork. And he's like, and the reason that people always get caught with kidnapping is the money drop. People always get caught in that moment. So he's like, so I'm not doing that. Like we're doing a whole different thing, and then you don't get to find out what that is. And then he's like very calmly explains in whole exposition with amazing sound cues whenever he drops some expository thing. It's like, oh, that bullet will kill two people, me and Abby.
Dun,
And
dun,
it goes, like noise.
There's also very, very bad early handheld camera stuff here.
Yes.
Oh, it's something that our friend Abby Fudor would have walked out of.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, Abby is in the movie, is the
Right.
daughter, which Bob had mentioned before.
And she's played by Dakota Fanning,
Correct.
the greatest child actress who will ever live.
It's true. I remember that being a thing, and I don't know a lot about pop culture, but like even her greatness had reached me under my rock. But I don't know that I've ever seen her child acting, but I was like, kid's got real chops.
Oh yeah.
It's one of those things where, like, you hear how great she is, and you think, like, it has to be overblown, and then you're like, nope, yep, she's just that good.
Nope, I've never seen a child more convincingly a child, and yet following the plot of the movie as needed. So the dramatic tension is essentially that Charlize Theron can't do anything to protect or defend herself against Kevin Bacon, because if he doesn't make a phone call every 30 minutes, her kid is going to die, and her kid is more than 30 minutes away, so that she couldn't, like, conceivably get to her daughter in the time it took to, you know, I don't know, incapacitate him. And he sort of starts out, like, lazily disregarding her attempts to fight back. Like, she, like, comes at him with a gun, and he's very like, haha, no, you're not gonna kill me. And I just
Because
kept thinking,
that bullet would kill 2 people.
and, like, maybe I've seen too many of these movies, but I was like, you don't have to kill him with that bullet. You just shoot his foot off and then torture him until you get the answer. Start pulling teeth out, man.
Well, like, you don't even have to do the teeth pulling. Shoot him and call the FBI, and they'll take care of it for you.
Also, like, threaten the partner with, do you really want to go to jail for killing a kid? Prisoners aren't fans of those people.
Yeah,
Right.
I wanted her to be like, oh, his name's Marvin? Is that his name in your contact in your phone? I'm
Right.
just gonna shoot you and use your phone.
Right, like, all of this, it's the perfect crime, doesn't hold up.
And I know that what they're trying to say is that you'll do anything to protect your child, but I feel like if the whole plot of the movie is, like, emphasizing the, like, it's perfect, it's a perfect, unfaultable crime, then all I'm gonna do is be like, fault, there's a fault, there's a fault. It's like that terrible Aaron Sorkin show where they're like, we're the funniest people. And then they would show you sketches.
Studio
like,
60 on the Sunset Strip.
That's not funny.
Nobody likes my Commedia dell'arte sketch.
This is the only time these two things have ever been compared.
So what happens next? What's the next twist?
So basically, the next twist is that Courtney Love has left rock and roll.
Remember how she acted for a while?
I did not! I don't think I'd ever seen her in anything.
So she was actually, like, she was nominated for a Golden Globe and, like, got a lot of Oscar buzz when she played Althea Flint in The People vs. Larry Flint.
I have seen her.
Yes, and she was really good in that movie, and then really not good in a lot of other movies.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, you know, she's, like, some drug problems and stuff, and I think that that's might have been overlapping with some of the filming time here. She has a little bit of a vacant look.
Yes.
And it's possible she's acting, because her character also seems to have some addiction problems.
Yeah, but the camera, like, keeps zooming in on her very blue eyes like it's gonna find something, and it does not.
It doesn't.
And I say this as someone who's like, people are too mean to Courtney Love, and I'm not trying to be mean to her as a person, but miscast, I would say.
Yes.
Yeah, she's also outclassed by all the other actors.
Yeah.
And I think she actually did a fine job with her character. I think she was both convincingly threatening and unsure of herself, but she's just not as good an actress as Stuart Townsend or Charlize or Kevin Bacon.
Well, like, Stuart Townsend's not that great either, and so, like, they're in their scenes together, and it's like, oh, it's time for the C-plot. Like, every time they go to them, I'm the least interested in the movie.
Well, also because I think that the movie, like, is invested in having stakes, but, like, not actually in exploring them.
Yeah.
So, for example, she comes to the hotel room to, like, vaguely seduce him, and he's like, I love my wife, because we need to know that he's, like, a good man, so that we can be more on his side, I guess.
Except for, we also know he is definitely not a good man, because when he checks into the hotel, and they say, Mr. Jennings, welcome, he says, Dr. Jennings.
Yes.
Which is the worst thing that a human being can do short of a war crime.
Which brings me to the point that when he calls the FBI about his kid, Robin, what does he say?
He says, this is Dr. William Jennings. I need someone from the FBI. That's on a seaplane radio.
So I feel like I skipped a very important point, and I'm gonna
He has a seaplane?
Yeah, he has a seaplane. So at the beginning of the movie, he's like, I'm gonna fly away in my seaplane because that's the only
That's
way.
how he commutes.
Yes, that's how one gets to a conference when you were Dr. William Jennings. And as he leaves, Dakota Fanning is like, are you gonna wibble wobble? And the mom's like, it's wobble wibble. And that means that when he gets in the plane, he tilts it akimbo so that she knows that the plane is waving to her and that her father loves her even though he's never around.
Right.
And this will come back around later. So anyway, in the hotel room, Courtney Love makes her way in there and she's like, look, my partner's holding your wife, my other partner's holding your kid. If you fuck around, people are gonna die. And in the C plot, at some point he basically, like, punches her in the face,
Yeah.
and gets the
And
gun,
rips her dress off?
rips her dress, and then sees that she's got bruises and is concerned that she's being beaten, and then immediately was like, here's a towel, ma'am. I'm so sorry that you've kidnapped my daughter and me.
And then, like, a scene and a half later, he's like, you know what it's time for? Some medical torture.
Yes! He very quickly is like, I punched you, I have the upper hand, but I'm gonna give it back to you because the movie's not ready for me yet. And then he injects her with essentially, like, magic venom that paralyzes her.
He injects her with the spider bullet.
From Salt.
Yes.
He, like, calls up Salt and he's like, I know you're killing sleeper agents, but my daughter is very charming. Can you give me your dead husband's spider goo? And that happens off screen like a good Chekhov play. And then he injects her with this weird stuff. She realizes what it feels like to die, and then she's like, is that what my daughter felt like when she died? Because all along, as you quickly figure out within about 20 minutes of the movie, they're doing this because they had a daughter that died, and you find out that they believe that Dr. William Jennings is responsible for their daughter's death in surgery.
But here's the thing. This is the 5th time
Yes.
they've done this so-called perfect crime, which they brag about a lot. They're like, we've got this down to a science. Did they have 4 other daughters who were killed?
Yeah.
So I think they
How
were...
many ulterior motives can one
Yes.
person have?
Oh, this
This
guy
person-
set the wrong bone in my leg.
That man killed my dog.
This guy used the wrong colored tooth enamel on my filling.
They didn't write which leg needed to be operated on. Ooh. I mean, they fixed it in time. I'm just mad about the possibility of error. So I don't mean to defend the movie, but I think either they were other hospital staff members that he was also mad at, or it
What
was.
if they be like, there's been a rash of kidnappings?
But he says no one says anything because they're afraid after they get their kid back that if they report anything that he's going to come back and kill
Oh yeah,
their kid.
that's just silly.
It is
Yes.
stupid. They're like, unless he's like doing it from like the waspiest families possible, and they're like, let's just put everything behind us. Let us never speak of this again. But I think that he did it 4 times so they could get the perfect crime down for his revenge crime and also have enough money to run away again and start a new life.
Oh,
With their
so there
new-
was
Yeah,
those
there were 4 trial runs.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll allow it.
What do they say? Measure twice, cut once, kidnap
Yeah.
4 times, keep the kid on the last one. That old adage.
Yes.
So anyway, you find these things out, and then there's just repeated like weird tensiony scenes that we can talk about afterwards.
I mean, really, all of the scenes between Charlize and Kevin Bacon have a rapey undercurrent.
Yes.
It's also
That's
sometimes
part
just
of-
a current. It's just
Yeah,
what's
that's
driving
true.
them along.
Yeah, that is actually part of his Swiss watch of a plan, is that he gets to rape the women.
Yay.
Yeah, and they mentioned that in the opening grainy sequence. So
Oh, really?
Yeah, he says like, didn't we have a good day? Like even the party that we had, or so he alludes to like the party, and I was
Oh.
like, oh, he raped her. Cool, thanks, movie. Anyway, so things spiral out of control at different points, but it's always, I think the fundamental problem with the movie is that the dramatic tension is set up within 5 minutes, and then they keep like resetting those blocks, but it's always in the same configuration, so
Yeah.
it's very boring. So it's like Charlize will have the upper hand, and then she cedes the upper hand again because of the original.
How many times in the course of this movie does she get a weapon on him?
Many times.
Like 8 or 9.
Yeah, both people. Like,
Yes.
Yeah, like their attempts to resist are extremely inconsistent.
Well, it's like they're surprisingly effective, and then they just sort of stumble at the last
Or
moment.
they're just gonna go, I changed my mind. Just
Right.
No.
Yeah.
And also, like, Kevin Bacon is constantly trotting out, if you do anything, like, he just keeps saying over and over again
Right.
what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't really give their capitulation any weight when you've been reminded relentlessly, the reason that this is going to end with me still in control is that I've had control all along.
Right.
So it's, anyway, I'll try to finish the plot and then we can tear it apart.
Okay.
So anyway,
Well,
blah,
also,
blah, blah.
Dakota Fanning has asthma.
Of
That's
course she does.
occasionally relevant.
Yeah, and that's so that we can have a scene where she and Charlize hug, and Charlize is like, "You're gonna be great. You're so great." I assume as actors.
And multiple, she needs her medicine!
Yes.
That stuff.
Also, God, how many times did they say "my baby"? Anyway, the end of the movie, climaxy things happen after Stuart Townsend has tortured Courtney Love and explain to her very quickly that it wasn't his fault. It was the surgeon who nicked an artery.
Gets some hardcore Lima syndrome here. That's like Stockholm syndrome in reverse.
Okay.
So she is like all about Dr. Jennings and how like he's like, I didn't kill your daughter, it was someone else. She's like, oh really? Okay.
Well then, oops, my bad.
Yes.
Also, like, can we just pause for a second and discuss the, like, it's probably not the other doctor's fault either.
No.
Maybe it's...
People just die.
It's surgery. Surgeons aren't infallible. You shouldn't hold them accountable and kidnap their children.
Right. It bothered me, honestly, that they even bothered with this other unseen surgeon is the one truly at fault.
I thought it was
because he's an innocent person, even if he lost a patient.
Correct.
Right, yeah. I was assuming it was going to be part of, like, she died as part of a clinical trial that he was responsible for. Because, like, they show him at a conference giving a demonstration about the drug he's been clinically trialing, and then that just has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And then the ulterior motive they have for kidnapping him and specifically targeting his daughter also is not accurate. Yeah. So, like, you've done 2 false starts.
Yes.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I just really didn't understand why the movie was like, no, it wasn't him. It was some reckless other doctor. As if that person would then have deserved this.
Right.
I was like, who has so much faith in their doctors, like, that they would assume that they couldn't ever possibly, I don't know, fail at something. Like, they're just people.
Like, their kid had cancer. People with cancer die sometimes.
It's true.
Like, it just is a thing.
Yeah. Life's tough.
That's the Thron attitude.
Yeah.
Look!
Get used to it, kids. Your kids are gonna die.
Don't be so grumpy about it.
Yeah, you don't want to kidnap someone just because your kid dies.
Yeah,
Guys!
just get on with it, for God's sake. Come on.
We're sorry for your loss also. Anyway, the plot continues. So they do the money transfer.
Yeah.
And no one seems to care at the end.
No one cares.
The money is so beside the point.
I forgot that they had gotten the money.
Yeah, so he gets the money with, he being Stuart Townsend and Courtney Love get the money, but he's contacted the FBI, but sort of shittily, but then he's wearing a wire, but then he takes the wire off, and then he decides the only way to save his daughter, who's in a cabin in the Cascades, is to get in a plane and just look around, because that's effective.
Yeah, his little seaplane.
For his little blonde child in the woods, I guess.
Yep.
The sun would reflect on her golden locks.
The sun in the Pacific Northwest.
Exactly. So he's chasing her down. Oh, also, we forgot... Oh, God, it's because I don't want to talk about the scene. We can talk about it more in a second. But basically, Kevin Bacon attempts to rape Charlize.
Yes.
And then she holds a knife to his balls and is like, I will castrate you if you don't do what I want. And then that doesn't work out, and then she, like...
She does cut him good, though.
She slices his leg up real good.
And he spends the rest of the movie doing that Hollywood I'm in shock. They put, like, really gross gray sweat makeup on my face.
They just dunked his head in a bucket of glycerin and were like, now you're sick.
Right. It's like, okay, bucket of glycerin, drink some caffeine so you're shaking, you look like you're dying.
Yeah.
And again, like with this, where it's sort of like she has the upper hand, but then she immediately loses it, but then he doesn't follow through on any of his actual threats. He's not like, well, you cut my leg, I'm gonna kill your kid, or I'm gonna kill you. He's just like, well, let's move along with my original plan.
Right. Let me drive. I'm nearly passing out from blood loss, but I'll drive.
I got this. So they decide that they're gonna like meet on a highway, I guess, to get the kid from Marvin. It's very confusing. They say on the phone like, we're not gonna give the kid away, or we're not gonna give the kid back. But Charlize is just sitting there, also I guess being shocky herself. And then the father wibble wobbles the plane, and then the daughter knows that that's her dad. But then he crashes the plane. Then she thinks her dad is dead. She runs out on the road and is screaming about her dad, but he's not dead. But then all like 6 of them fight a bunch, and then Charlize once again has a gun on everybody, but doesn't shoot anybody. And then she does shoot Kevin Bacon.
She shoots Kevin Bacon once he puts a gun against her husband. You left out the part where they are in the seaplane and they're getting phone calls from Kevin Bacon and they have to cut the engine so that he doesn't know that they are in a seaplane. And it is the most contrived, absurd thing in the world, but I kind of loved it.
I also love that when you cut the engine in a seaplane,
it immediately
plummets to the earth.
I mean, I honestly don't know. Those kinds of planes are very confusing to me. Like, how do they stay in the air? They're basically a pinwheel. wheel.
How can one machine conquer both air and sea? That's what I think every time. It's not right, pick your element.
So, yes, the seaplane immediately goes into a nosedive, and the second phone call, he's just, like, taking his time.
Yeah,
He's like...
And the first one, like, they're diving, and then it's a really short call, and they're, like, over the water.
Right.
The second one, they're diving, and they're over a forest.
Yeah.
So it's like, you have less time now.
Yeah.
And you talk for ages.
Yes.
And the conversation consists of Kevin Bacon being like, do you love me? I love you. Do you love me? Because he's talking to Courtney Love. And he's worried that she's betrayed him, which she has, but he can't tell because the plane is off.
It's ridiculous. We also left out my favorite scene in the movie, which is right before Kevin Bacon tries to rape Charlize. He's trying to, like, seduce her.
With, like, a wine dinner?
Yeah, he's like, well, because I guess it's like you said, like, their like he said to the first victim, like, our party. Like, he's like, let's just make a nice date of this, me raping you.
I thought that what he was doing was basically like, not only am I going to rape you, but I'm going to ruin things that you associate with your husband.
I see.
Very deliberately. Like, he puts the husband's shirt on.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, is this where Will sits, like, for dinner or something?
Yeah.
Like, and then he's like, what do you and your husband do? Like, so I think he's like, very much like, I'm just going to psychologically brutalize you.
Yeah.
Thanks for going into that movie.
Anyway, it's completely exploitive and gross and unnecessary, but... Knock, knock. At midnight, the neighbor, Joan, shows up because she needs a disc for that auction that's coming up. What disc? I don't know.
It's the music they play during the auction.
Is it?
I have no idea.
Oh, she's like, I need that disc for that auction.
Also, she's on the way to pick up her son who's at a sleepover, and her son is presumably freaking out and wants to be picked up, and she's like, I'm gonna get that auction disc before I rescue my crying child.
Okay, so it's Colleen Camp, who I love that actress, and she's like, oh, hi, Will, and then Kevin Bacon is like, actually, I'm Joe, and she's like, so, hello, strange man who's alone with Charlize drinking wine in their house
and
at
was
midnight.
Sucking on her neck when she knocked.
Yes, right. So, eventually, Charlize, like, plays along and is like, Joan, yes, I am having an affair with this man.
Don't look at the sweat on my brow
Right.
or the horror in my eyes.
And Joan, becoming my favorite character in any movie, is equal parts, oh, honey, I didn't know you guys were having problems. Right in front of him! Right in front of him! And then also, ooh, get it, girl!
Yes! She's like, he's kind of dangerous. Suck it. Like, she is into it.
It is the greatest weird, nosy neighbor, and, like, I think they're not even really friends.
I want to believe that the moment the credit rolled that Charlize is like, I'm glad my kid is safe, but the first thing I have to do is call Joan and be like, I was kidding! I need to explain. And you know that Joan will never believe her. We'll be like, sure,
Right.
kidnapped.
Yeah.
You get that, D. Like, what? She's just never going to be convinced.
She sees the news report about the huge pileup on the
Yeah.
highway.
She's like, no need to go through such an elaborate cover-up. Every woman's got needs. Marriage is a journey.
Anyway, Joan, we love you.
Oh, that was so great. My favorite part of the movie, for a movie that we hate, we're talking about all the fun bits.
Yeah.
Is that Marvin is a creepy man in a creepy cabin, and he's whittling wood and has lots of clocks around, so you know he's not quite right. And at the end of the kidnap spree, he has a carved bear that's hugging a little girl, which he gives to Dakota Fanning to memorialize their day together. And when she runs out of the car screaming to get away from him to look for her dead dad, she keeps that bear with her. She's like, oh no, I want this. And I feel like that was such a weird choice. And I felt like they were trying to, like, make us, I don't know, care about Marvin, or like,
We were supposed to feel bad for Marvin.
but he, like, had his hands around her throat.
Yeah, I mean,
He was supposed to be the one the most conflicted about what they were doing, but
Right.
I also felt like they were like, but he's a little simple.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was, like, on the spectrum or something, so, like, he would follow instructions,
Yeah.
but, like, yeah, he didn't really want to.
He's not a very complexly drawn character.
No, and he just, like, his relation to them is unclear, other than he's like, the Katie was his family,
I
but we
think
don't
that
know.
I think that he's Joe's cousin.
Oh, you're right, they do say that.
Yeah.
The other thing that I particularly thought was great in this movie is at some point when he's gonna choke Dakota Fanning to death, I was looking at his nail beds, and I was like, what great nail bed makeup artistry they've done. Because they were, like, basically, like, all just, like, ragged, like, dirty fingernails in a way that I was like, what attention to detail this movie seemed to ignore for the rest of the plot. But they put it right there.
Also possible that Pruitt Taylor Vince just has gross fingers.
No, I want that to be a decision that someone made to put something loving into this movie.
Okay.
Because later when Charlize is in a car that rolls over, she has the laziest 3 stripes of red blood on her forehead.
They did some really weird injury makeup work with Charlize. So she gets that shiner right at the beginning of the movie. And the movie takes place within the course of 24 hours, based on a book called 24 Hours.
Mhm.
And the shiner goes away, like...
Well, doesn't Kevin Bacon
Like, they
put
put
2
makeup on it?
makeup?
Oh, that's right! Right before Joan comes over.
Exactly,
yes.
Never mind. Criticism withdrawn.
Also, he uses like a powder compact, and with 2 dots, bruise gone. I'm like, I wish my zits were as amenable to
But he
makeup.
also strangles her for a while,
He does.
and she doesn't have a single mark on her neck.
Kevin Bacon is just a master of makeup and
Yeah.
covering up bruises.
Yeah. So I think like the only scene in the movie that I did find like actually like really upsetting was the deliberate plotting towards the rape moment.
Oh god, it was horrible.
It was just really grim, and like Charlize like going in the bathroom and like looking in the mirror and like crying and like freaking out and trying to figure out what she's gonna do. But then she does something that I'm like, this is such a confusing choice. So she's puts a scalpel in her butt crack.
Yes.
So that
Sharp side out.
sharp side out, so that Kevin Bacon like won't see it. But I'm like, if you move at
At
all, you are gonna slice up your backside. Also, if he's about to, jump you, I feel like
See, I originally thought that it was like her like grab guard. That she thought that he would like go for the ass and then cut
Oh.
himself.
Yeah, maybe.
But that would give her like a second.
yes.
Right.
Oh, yeah, and so basically, like, she goes into the bathroom to, like, undress, and then she comes back out and, like, is gonna give Kevin Bacon a blowjob, and he's like, you're not like the other moms. And he kept saying that,
Yeah.
like, how she was different from all the other moms, and I'm like, this is very unpleasant. And then she, like, holds his head down with one hand, like, has her mouth in his genital area, and then with her other arm is pulling out a scalpel to then go to castrate him,
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Well, to threaten him
Yes.
with a knife on his business.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like holding the knife against, I guess, his scrotum.
Yuck.
So, there's little known fact, there was actually a deleted scene where
Oh,
Kevin
no.
Bacon's nutsack is played by Andy Serkis.
Oh, I'm so glad that didn't go where I thought it was going to go.
I know, I was like, I'm sweating just
I
thinking about
do
what
not need little known facts about castration.
all facts about castration should be as little known as possible.
Alright. So, basically, this movie's not good.
No.
No.
So, I should mention something.
Yes.
I liked it.
No! I
The
saw that look in your
Prometheus
eye.
chair!
This is such an insignificant movie to be in the Prometheus chair for, but I was like, I found it effectively tense. There were scenes, like the scalpel scene and the exposition scene where she is like making decisions about how she's going to cooperate or not. I was like, I was like sweaty palmed,
Ooh.
and Kevin Bacon is very effectively creepy. And I was like, yeah, this demonstrates Kevin Bacon is famous for a reason.
Okay. I will say that one thing is that I did not know how this was going to end.
I
Oh,
did.
I knew how it was
like
gonna
10 minutes.
I didn't. I was expecting... I mean, the ending that happened, which was that they were reunited with their children and the kidnappers are thwarted and blah blah, is what I expected.
Yeah.
But I did not feel 100% confident in that.
I didn't expect there to be a landing on a freeway scene.
Neither did I.
But I will say, one of the things I like about this is the plot is very simple and it's explained up front. So all the tension doesn't come from like, what's going to happen next? It always comes from the success or failure of each individual step and the protagonist's attempts to thwart it. Which I think is a much more effective way of creating tension. I wish more movies did that kind of thing.
Well, I think what Regina said earlier about how, like, they set it up and then we sit in wait.
Yeah.
That's how I experienced it more. I was kind of like, get to the fireworks factory.
Well, I feel like there are movies that successfully do that, like in a sort of Greek tragedy way, where the weight of the inevitability of a negative outcome is what's like crushing your heart the whole time you're watching it. And I think that is like a very effective way to do tension, and I find that difficult to watch, and I'll often pause and be like, I need water! But this movie, I felt like sets that up, but then undercuts it repeatedly by having the scenes that I think are supposed to, like, rather than exploring the dynamic that they set up, I feel like they just keep rearranging the parts in the same way. So it's like, she's got a gun on him, but I'm like, she just had a gun on him like 3 seconds ago.
Yeah.
And nothing happens because I feel like none of the decisions that the characters make have actual consequences outside of the original premise, so that they're not actually responding to the moment, they're only responding to the original setup, and that for me, like, let the air out of the tension.
Oh no, I should explain. I can't defend this movie at all.
You just enjoyed it.
I just enjoyed.
That's fair.
Like in the moment, I was like, "This is an effective movie that I'm happy to forget about."
I found it diverting. You know,
Yeah.
I enjoyed watching it. I highly don't recommend it.
I think for me, I maybe would have enjoyed it more, but full disclosure, I watched half of it on a layover yesterday, and half of it this morning while still jet lagged. So that may have affected...
She watched the very end as I was walking in.
This is the freshest review I could give you.
So we should talk about Charlize.
We should, and we have a new segment.
New segment!
New segment!
Did we decide on a name?
I just...
Charlotte Zenith.
Charlotte Zenith, which is what...
I pronounce it Zenith.
Oh!
Charlize Zenith is what I was thinking.
That's much better. Maybe...
Alright, well, we'll let the British person introduce it every time we do
I
this
also
segment.
don't even know if Americans are supposed to say
We
Zenith.
say Zenith.
Okay.
The Charlize Zenith of the movie.
And that means we're all going to pick a particular scene that Charlize was in and talk about why it was our favorite Charlize moment of the movie.
So we should also, I think in order to do this, we should define what constitutes a Charlize moment.
I think we'll find that as we go along.
I honestly just think
okay.
it's the moment where you're most like, fuck yeah, Charlize. Right? Like, I love you, you're my favorite.
Yeah. I was thinking of using the segment as a way to sort of like draw out those things and like
Okay.
look for specific things in future movies. Because I know why I love Charlize, but I want to give everyone who doesn't feel the way I do a framework to latch onto.
Well, I know what mine is, and it's early on, and it's in a big exposition part with Kevin Bacon at the beginning, and she's going through the, you don't understand, my daughter has asthma part, and he's like, okay, nice try, lady, bullshit, and then she goes, open the drawer. And, like, it's just like the most threatening way to tell someone to look into a kitchen cabinet. And he does, and it's full of asthma medicine.
Yes. So I think my Charlize Zenith moment is it's something that Charlize does extremely well, which is the serious pink-rimmed wet eye stare.
Yes.
She does that a lot in this movie, but there was one particular scene, and I can't remember exactly where it comes up. It's somewhere in the middle after she has, like, tried to thwart and then given up thwarting whatever stage they're at, as often happens throughout this movie. But there's like a close-up moment of her face, and like Kevin Bacon is pissed off about what just happened, and she's just looking like intensely like 3/4 off to the camera, and like just has like the weepy eyes and the serious, intense, scared, 1,000-yard stare Charlize face that she does so well.
You're gonna have to get a screen grab of that, buddy.
Oh, I can get one.
Okay.
There's a really good, big, good quality shot of it.
Fantastic.
Oh man. So don't want to pick this one, but I feel like I have to. It's the pre-rape scene. Also, full disclosure, she does not end up getting raped because she gouges out his leg.
Right.
But when she's sitting at the table, this is again, I feel like the way that Charlize cannot say or move a muscle, and it's all that you can look at on the screen. So it's her sitting at the table, and she hasn't touched anything. Like, her wine is full, her food plate is big, and Kevin Bacon has obviously, like, just finished his meal, and he's on the side, and the camera sort of centers her, and she's just, like, quietly, like, looking down, and you can see, like, the dread and revulsion, like, just, and she does, like, there's no lines, it's not, like, a big dynamic moment of acting, so it's sort of similar to what you were saying, but it's just the way that she can pull the entire scene into her skin, and I just it's so, I mean, like, that is a very upsetting moment, and I feel like I'm gonna cheat on the very first one, and my second choice is in the beginning, and I think it's because I hadn't been bored by the movie yet, but when she realizes that Abby is gone, and she's running through the house, and when she sees the bad idea written on the glass, and like she looks really confused, and like the mix of like confusion, fear, and like proactive thinking, where she's like, I'm gonna get the gun, I don't know what to do, but I'm gonna get the gun. Like, she just looked it was very convincing and very skillful.
Yeah, there's also, speaking of the gun, there is a point towards the end where she shoots the bad guy, or she shoots Kevin Bacon, and she's pointing the gun in a way that is basically identical to the way she points the gun in Monster, which is
I haven't seen that either.
I haven't seen it either, but in the promotional material for Monster, there is a screenshot where she is pointing the gun in a very particular way and has a very particular expression on her face, which is a sort of crazed, terrified expression, and it's like, oh, that's where you honed that skill.
Yes.
Practice. Well, I'm glad this movie led to something.
Yeah.
Exactly. It also led to her 10-year relationship with Stuart Townsend.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is there an Ebert or Mebert?
There is not. This movie was not screened for critics.
Oh, that
shit.
is fair.
Yes.
Can I ask the very important question? Would this movie have been improved? With
By
the
a prison riot?
Yes is the answer for sure. But where? I don't know.
I was thinking about it too. I was like, it would have to have been a flashback.
Right.
I was like, it should have been a flashback to Kevin Bacon in prison, or
Ooh, I got
Coming
it.
up with his plan.
I just got it.
Yeah.
Okay, instead, they have the very cliche log truck on the highway for the big highway confrontation. What if it's a prison transport bus? And then they have a crash, and then there's like a chain gang riot. Does that count?
Yeah,
that would count. I would also go flashback, and I would go flashback to, like, Kevin Bacon escaping from prison.
Okay.
Yeah, I like your chain gang idea. I also would like that if the chain gang, like, all chained together coming off the bus, somehow was informed that Kevin Bacon had kidnapped a kid, and then they all kicked the shit out of Kevin Bacon.
I love it.
I really wish that when the biplane was coming down, that Con Air was also coming down. And then Cyrus the Virus is just running amok on the sidelines.
See, that's what I'm thinking. They're trying to create this, like, situation of chaos, and really it more seemed like, oh, well, we shut down I-5 or whatever it is. We need some prisoners running amok.
Yeah,
That would be
all
great.
right.
Yep.
This comes down in the positive column.
Yep.
I admit it's a stretch, but this movie needs all the help it can get.
Exactly.
Everything in this movie is a stretch.
Yes.
At one
Yes.
point, he tortures a woman with paralysis. That's a stretch.
Yes.
I mean, only when it's not in the film Salt, and then paralysis makes perfect sense.
The perfect sense.
Perfect sense.
Exactly.
Spider venom, guys. Duh. That's what spiders do.
Who would you shoehorn Keanu into?
Okay.
I object to the use of the word shoehorn.
I have an answer. I have an answer that I'm very proud of.
I am curious if it's the same as mine.
So, I had some thoughts. I mean, part of me would have loved to see Keanu whittling and force-feeding instant coffee to a dying child, as Marvin did. But I'm like, no. I'm going to cast Keanu as an innocent bystander, because at some point Kevin Bacon and Charlize are driving, and Kevin Bacon is convinced that the cops are following them, so he pulls into a parking garage, sees a woman, knocks her out, throws her in the trunk of her car, and then steals the car, and then the rest of the movie takes place. And then after the car flips and there's an accident, Charlize opens the trunk and the woman falls to the ground from the air
with a tire iron in her hand.
She's ready.
Which, good for you, lady in the
yeah,
trunk.
she is on, and she says to Charlize, "Please don't hurt me," because she doesn't know what's going on. And Charlize just looks at her like, "Bitch, you're not my biggest problem." Grabs the tire iron, and then the woman just hightails it off the road, which I think is very smart. And I would make Keanu be that woman.
So that was also going to be my choice, but I do have a runner-up, which I will share, which is Courtney Love.
Yeah.
Because I felt like the seduction part of that was completely unnecessary.
Yep.
And
Yep.
also, look, why can't Keanu try to seduce Stuart Townsend?
Sure.
Anyway, it didn't really, like, they can still have a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't
change the plot.
It doesn't change the plot at all, and Courtney Love was really the weak link acting-wise for me.
Yeah.
So that seems like a good spot to put Keanu.
Yeah, I think I would cast him. Those are both great choices, but I would like to make him the hotel front desk clerk.
The person
Who's like,
so rudely welcomes Mr. Jennings.
"May I inform you, sir, everyone is looking forward so much to your presentation." And then later on,
sorry, don't call me sir, it's Dr. Jennings.
Later on, he's also like, "Yeah, I can forward your calls to a seaplane for you, no problem."
I also have an alternate choice, which is inspired by Kubo and the Two Strings. If he could be the wooden bear figure that she had to carry with him, and if anything ever happened, the spirit of Marvin would come to save her with instant coffee.
The instant coffee thing is apparently caffeine helps you breathe if you have asthma.
Yeah, which you'd think that when he heard that, he would have
Have
pot
some coffee
on.
ready.
But he doesn't, and then he wraps her in a dusty towel,
He's like,
puts a horse blanket on her.
right, he's like, what's the dustiest, dirtiest thing I can find? All right, let me shake it right in front of your nose.
So I actually thought that was really good. I thought it was
Right.
stupid of the character, But I thought the way the movie was designed, it did really good like visual setups for the scenes, because you knew
I
that
see.
Dakota Fanning had asthma, because when she was in her room doing something, you saw the machine like on her bedside table.
Yeah.
And then it's not mentioned, no one says anything, but you're like, oh, there's a machine with tubes coming out of it. Something's wrong with that.
They
kid.
also say, like, in the very beginning, before the wibble wobble,
Yeah.
she, like, looks at crabs, and they think that she's having an asthma attack.
Right, yeah. And then later on, when he's like, she's like starting to breathe heavily, and then he's like, oh shit, and like puts a blanket over her, and like he shakes it out, and the dust comes out. I was like, oh, that's gonna make things worse.
Yeah.
Which I was like, oh, that's clever visual setup.
I would agree. I just think that when he's on the phone with Kevin Bacon and he's like, hey, something's wrong, she's got asthma, and the mom was like, she needs coffee if she starts having an attack.
Yeah.
Make
some
some
on.
coffee.
Oh, totally.
Just put some on.
Oh, yeah.
And what he does is he mixes up like Folger's instant packet into a slurry
Yeah.
and then forces it down her throat. But I did
Which, like, makes me gag.
oh,
Yeah.
that was
And I
so
drank
great.
instant coffee for 3 years.
My favorite, I did really like though that they're watching cartoons later, and he's like, God, like, aren't you tired? And she's like, no, like, I'm full of caffeine and medicine.
And I'm 6 years old.
And also you've kidnapped me, so I'm awake, buddy.
They watched The Simpsons and The Secret of Nim, and I was like, you know, if Little Robin were being kidnapped and that was what was on the TV, I'd be like, cool, make some more coffee, buddy.
I think Adult Robin would, well, maybe not.
I don't feel a little less cool with being kidnapped than I
Yeah.
think I would have back then, which doesn't really...
What?
I don't. Okay, guys.
Where would we rank it?
Well, I'm going to put mine just below Aeon Flux and just above Huntsman Winter's War. And I know...
I'm horrified by this, but go ahead.
That's pretty
You're gonna
low
love
for
mine.
me.
I know. Well, I still can't believe that no one likes Huntsman as much as I did.
Oh, okay. I like the first one a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I sort of wavered on that, but I do have to say, I did not dislike this movie. It's
Yeah.
just thoroughly not good.
Yeah.
I would rank it, presumably higher than anyone else. I would rank it just below 2 Days in the Valley.
Wow.
Which for me, this makes it's my lowest ranked movie that I would recommend.
Oh.
Oh, this is your turning point movie.
Yeah, so like I have a recommendation threshold in between 2 Days in the Valley and Bagger Vance at the moment, where like I would not recommend Bagger Vance because whatever. But it's just boring.
Just
And
watch the knee slap gift. That's
Yeah,
the good
Right,
part.
that's the most exciting bit. But like, so this, I'm like, this is effectively emotive. So I was like, if this is on late night on television, I would watch it to the end.
Okay.
Okay. Unsurprisingly, I'm probably going to rank this the lowest of everybody.
Oh, the other thing I would say about in comparison to 2 Days in the Valley is that while Kevin Bacon I thought was great in this and very effectively creepy, he's no James Spader.
Who is?
James Spader is magnificent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This movie would have been a lot better with James
Oh,
Spader.
yeah.
It's true. They also did something that I forget where I saw this, but I feel like I read a review by someone that I really liked that talked about how they really need to see, like, we just need to put a moratorium on villains eating grossly. Like, we don't need that additional visual and I feel like it, like, equates manners with morality, but, like, at some point, Kevin Bacon is just drinking milk out of the carton and it streams down the side of him. And it's just like, you don't need that. He's kidnapped a child and is torturing a woman psychologically and has raped people. It's okay if he doesn't drink milk out of the carton.
He's
I got
also
it.
wearing a long sleeve thermal under a, like, wicking polo.
Evil.
Yes. Colin was like, was that a thing? Was that something that people wore back in the early aughts?
Yeah,
I think so.
People
It was a
wore-
confusing time.
People wore polos over long sleeve thermals.
I think so.
Oh, gosh.
9/11 changed a lot.
Can I ask a dumb question?
Yeah.
So at some point we see Kevin Bacon shirtless.
Yeah.
Is that a real?
I really hope not. Oh, my
What?
gosh. He
He
has
has-
a spider web tattoo around his belly button.
It's,
Oh.
it is a spider web, and it's like a cartoon. Like he lifted it out of like a Spider-Man comic book and pressed it onto his stomach like silly putty, and it just stuck. Like it's really.
Regina, you haven't ranked it yet. While you rank it, I'm going to confirm that
Okay.
that was a character choice.
All right, but guys,
Please.
can we all agree that people who are villains, I don't need to see them shoveling food in their mouth very quickly for me to know that they're villains. So I'm not saying we can never do it, but let's just put a moratorium on it.
Guys,
Anyway.
it's fake. It's fake. It's
Oh,
fake.
thank God. How did you find that out?
I googled Kevin Bacon tattoo,
And it said,
and it's a bunch of pictures of him on the beach without a spider web.
I mean, laser removal.
Yeah,
You need to
True.
dig further. So
he
my
has.
ranking,
He does have some tattoos.
I am going to rank this below Men of Honor, but above the Cider House Rules. Because I think I didn't enjoy it, but I didn't actively hate it like I did Cider House Rules.
Right.
And I also think, like, given my sort of angle of, like, ranking it via Charlize's performance, not just the movie, like, even though she's, like, the main character and she does a lot in it, I think the movie sets her up to just have to do the same thing over and over again. So I feel like if it had been, like, a 1-hour TV episode, I would have been into it. So unfortunately, that's way down on my list. It's fourth from the bottom for me.
Oh wow, yeah, I'm down there too.
Okay. Oh yeah. I also liked Eon Flux so much better than all of you.
All right, well, thanks for listening.
Thank you to my co-hosts for joining us today.
You never introduced yourself at the top, Regina. Your name is
am
Regina.
I? Thank you to Alex Reed. We hope you enjoyed listening to his episode last week, where you could hear him not just singing our great theme song. He has an album out by his band Seeming, and if you like it, you should get it.
It's on Bandcamp.
It is on Bandcamp.
It's called Soul.
And there's a really good music video. So
Also true.
To check that out. Also, I am sad that our friends High on Film did not get a chance to do Atomic Blonde, but I really want to know why they didn't like it as much as we did, because I'm ready to argue about it.
Like, we're gonna fight.
We will. Also, I'm glad they agree about our pee break, though. A pee break high five across the coast. And most importantly,
thank you, Charlize.
And now you've heard the Theronathon. Every word of the Theronathon. It just occurred at the Theronathon. I hope your heart was stirred by the Theronathon, and that your kitties purred at the Theronathon. Your curiosity spurred by the Theronathon. You're turning into a nerd for the Theronathon. And if you're flipping the bird at the Theronathon, we are undeterred at the Theronathon. We're eating yogurt and curd at the
Go buy Soul's album, or no, Seeming's album.
Yes.
Go buy Alex Reed's band Seeming's album.
That was the best promotion he could get.